I'm Mike from Studio One. We are an artist platform based out of Toronto, and we try to celebrate artists of diverse genres and backgrounds. Can you please introduce yourself?
My name is James. Most know me by Body in the Water or Stay at Home Arsonist.
Where did you grow up, and how does your childhood environment affect your approach to making art?
I grew up in Oakville until I was 15, then moved just to outside of Guelph when I was, right after that. I mean, Nothing really along the path of childhood really led myself to become a producer, I guess. I can't think of any key memories. I know I've always been drawn to playing an instrument. When I was younger, I always liked to play drums. I guess that's kind of influenced, my more percussive things, like my more percussive projects have definitely come from my experience behind a drum kit. I remember my sister having a keyboard that had like 60 sounds, and I would always gravitate towards like the synth pad and the synth sections, and play them. And I was able to, with this little Roland keyboard, change this. Actually, it was a Yamaha keyboard. It wasn't a Roland, it was a Yamaha. But I figured out at the age of like 10 that if I switched the uh, sound bank from the one that I was playing before while holding a note, I can still hold that note and play another synth. So I was layering two
Mm,
synths together and creating these soundscapes in my living room just on my sister's keyboard. I never grew up learning how to read music. The fear of playing guitar kind of overwhelmed me. That's why I just do it all by ear on a keyboard. It's not like I have to strum an instrument and memorize where I have to put my fingers. I know some people can play guitar and not play by ear. I can't. I can play piano by ear the best I can. I think I've been doing it long enough where I know what sounds good and what doesn't. And I remember, like, even in high school, I didn't join any music camps or any music clubs. I remember I was in a music period at my high school when I lived in Oakville during grade 9, and I was great on the percussion. Everything like that was a okay. But as soon as it came to the tests where I had to learn the music, like note reading, I couldn't do it. It was like algebra to me. You could tell me, all cows eat grass, or another one of those, and I could just not apply it. So
mm,
I gave up. I quit before I failed because I knew I would have. Even when my physical playing of an instrument was like still pretty good. It's just when it came to theory, I sucked at it. Um, I mean, when I actually started getting into electronic music wasn't until I had moved to Guelph, just outside. I kind of had a familiarity with some electronic music. I remember dubstep being really big when I was, in my younger times. I remember being 9 or 10, being kind of drawn towards it, but not really understanding what it was. I always just assumed that electronic music was just rather than experimental music. One of the biggest influences that I've had in my life was, R.I.P. Michael. I used to just be an outsider because I came from you know, I was a big fish in a small pond. I went to a private school that basically it was, kindergarten up until grade 12. So there was lifers. So when I came and I was kind of the weird kid and kind of excluded from things, or that's how it felt at the time. Um, but yeah, Michael Fordvari, a great guy, rest his soul, would chill out with me in the locker room, and he would show me like, One O Tricks Point Never. And at that time too, I was listening to a lot of Death Grips. So we gave each other music. He gave me something, I gave him something. He was sort of producing himself. And it was just very, very lo-fi tape cassette recordings, from what I remember. And I just remember, you know, taking it all in and being like, if this is something that like you can, get a fan base for, or, express your creativity with, then count me in. Because like, I don't know, I've always wanted to express my emotions, and most of the time my emotions feel abstract. So when it comes to experimental music, it's and just avant-garde material, it really lets me express how I feel without being constrained to having to fit the norm of what music is.
Yeah.
So with the ability to experiment and kind of getting the ability to experiment to a semi-professional capability is probably one of the best gifts I've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of from the very beginning, from when I was a kid up until now. I mean, the three big things was the keyboard, playing drums, and Michael.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to tell myself that I would have found these artists eventually, but it was just that I caught it at such a young age, not having the exposure to it, and having someone that was older than me telling me those things. I would definitely consider him a mentor for sure. I mean, those times that we spent together and the music that he showed me, and kind of expressing that I could be capable of it, really kind of put myself in a new mindset of creativity.
Yeah. So I guess he was the one person. Like we all have, we all need a person if we're trying to pursue something or if we're interested in something, and it seems unfathomable. Michael was your person that
Yeah, I
got.
mean, even during the time that me and him were speaking as well, I didn't really even get into music production. I had Ableton and a MIDI keyboard, the same one that's in front of me right now, and it was just GarageBand, and because I was scared of Ableton too, I didn't have a MIDI controller, and it was difficult for me to learn the live screen.
Yeah.
So I was kind of turned away, and I just for like the first 3 months of me producing music.
You have mentioned in your Hedges interview that you don't see, uh, haven't found your genre, but you also do define yourself as a noise musician. So, what is Toronto's noise music community like?
I mean, I don't see much of a community. I know some people that produce noise in Toronto, but like I don't know them very well. Um, yeah, when it comes to, I mean, I don't really consider myself a noise musician. I kind of consider myself like a multi-genre. I mean, I do produce noise. I do enjoy noise music, but like I don't feel like I'm constricted to that genre. I feel like, I mean, like just now I'm making a track that's very poppy. I mean, I have the material in order, and the software I should say, in order to create these things. I mean, if you download Ableton, everyone does. You can have a guitar, flute, pan drum, ukulele. And, it's limitless with the capabilities that you have under your fingers. So I feel like my ADHD kind of you know it's kind of bittersweet because one, I can't focus on one particular genre, but then again, like when I do focus on one genre that I'm producing at that time, I can put all my work into it. And it's not like, I mean, if I feel like if I pigeonholed myself too, I wouldn't have the opportunities that I have. Like if I only made noise music, it would turn a lot of people away, just assuming that what they're going to be hearing is like a TV turned on with no channel. um, but I do have other genres that are public that people can see and kind of get an idea of what else I can do. But going back to Toronto musicians and Toronto noise musicians in particular, there's not very many that I know, if at all. There's no one that I, really talk to that's like making noise music in Toronto. And if there is, then, and they're watching this right now, shoot me a DM because I want to meet and bounce some ideas because it's lonely out here. I mean, Toronto is an atmosphere of pop music, R&B, rap. There's a lot of rock musicians that are coming out, a lot of pop musicians. But when it comes to the experimental side of music production, there's just a very tiny sliver in the pie chart of creatives. And again, I mean, it's not like I myself am a noise musician, so I can't even really group myself into, that label of being a Toronto noise musician. So I'm kind of just like, swimming around, and I feel like I can really talk to anybody in the music community as well. I mean, like I can make beats, right? Like, I mean, I have my machine, I have, the programs to make a pretty solid beat. I have before in the past. Um, but yeah, I mean, labeling yourself is, I think, one of the worst things you can do if you want freedom.
Yeah.
Um, just being stuck in a pigeonhole.
Yeah. Yeah. You wear a lot of hats, a lot of different genres, and uh, yeah, just it was just like going back to one of the topics we talked about, and I kind of pigeonholed you as a noise musician, so I apologize for that.
Oh no, it's okay. A lot of people just assume that if I'm experimental, it's just noise.
Okay.
I mean, I give Toronto credit with the knowledge that they have,
Mhm.
uh, and the openness of willing to listen to something that might be different. I mean, obviously, I've had people just be like, "This is, not my thing. I don't know how you can make something like this." Especially my more recent stuff that's not public. I've shared it around, and uh, the feedback I get is either this is insane, like you need to, release this, or it's like, where is your mind when you're making this? And I can't answer either. I really like to hold my music close to me. It wasn't for a while. I think I've mentioned this to you before.
Mhm.
My first two albums were like 26 and 22 tracks, if I'm not mistaken. But it was just because I was just sitting on music. I had, that many songs that were what I consider to be releasable, that were just sitting in a folder on my desktop, just gaining dust. And it wasn't until, I just said, whatever, I'll release it. And I did, and I got some okay feedback. I mean, I don't promote myself, so anytime I do an album release, it's usually just an Instagram story. Um, so right now I'm trying to get into the process of, okay, I have a release. How do I put my name out there and find people that have the same similar interest in this music? Again, going back to what you asked as well about Toronto and the noise scene. Again, I feel like a lot of people just assume that that's the only genre that I do. So, and them not being interested in noise, I feel like would kind of, push them away of wanting to listen to it. That could just be my, like, self-conscious speaking. Um, but I mean, I don't know. I found a niche audience. I found people that really enjoy my music, and I couldn't be any more thankful for them. Uh, because I mean, yeah, it's just cool to show, like, to see people, you know, absorbing it. This. I mean, like I mentioned before too. Like, this is my way of expressing my emotions in an abstract way. So for someone to, listen to it and appreciate it and understand it, it just speaks a thousand words. It's not like I'm writing a pop song or something, and uh, it's relatable. It's something that is kind of um, it's yeah, it's just a different form of music that I mean, not to sound snobby, but it takes a certain kind of appreciation to understand it and absorb it and understand it. I mean, a lot of my music, I would even consider myself to be, very, very repetitive. But at that time, I just had a very repetitive feeling, and it's like someone reads a poem that you wrote, and it's gibberish, and they're able to figure it out, and they take the time to, figure out what it means, right? Because I mean, I feel if, a lot of people took the time and tried to understand what I'm making, and, what I'm trying to present. And if you don't have the time, then, that's, not my issue. That's not your issue. Just, it's not your thing, and that's fine. But like I said, the people that do take the time and absorb my music, I couldn't be any more grateful and
Yeah.
humble.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, like you said, like also one of the artists I interviewed recently, Russell Louder, they were saying once you put your music out, it's kind of up to interpretation. It's
Mhm.
up to the audience to, they have their own understanding, which might not really match up with your intentions because that's art. It's hard to understand.
Mhm.
It's abstract. Um, what is your greatest listener interaction? I remember you said somebody just like met you on the street and told you that your music.
Yeah. I mean, it's that was the one time that kind of blew me away. That was really cool. Yeah, I was crossing the street and someone that was passing me was just like, "Hey, I fuck with your music," and I'm like, "Oh, wow, cool, dude, thanks." It just totally caught me off guard because it's not something I'm used to. I mean, usually it's just an Instagram DM, but for someone to recognize me in person and say something nice, that was really sweet. Yeah, cool guy. Um, Obviously, being recognized as someone that could be considered for a runway show, I mean, like, that was awesome as well. I mean, just to even be a thought, like, this guy makes music, he makes good music, and he can work with us. And, I didn't really understand how much responsibility that is, right? It was a 10-minute long track. Shout out Joey Gollish. Shout out Mr. Saturday. Um, Gave me the opportunity to make a runway show music score.
Yeah.
10 minutes, original tracks. Joey is a past musician himself, so he was able to give me keywords and ideas of what he wanted, and it was very easy. And it was a lot of fun. It goes back to the saying, like, if you find something you love, you wouldn't have to work a day in your life. Unfortunately, because I don't promote myself, nor do I have a solid portfolio in order to, get jobs. At least I think I don't. I like to think that I'm still growing it, but right now it's not bad. But I have to work a full time job. But when I get an opportunity like that, it's something that I really like to work at.
Yeah. Remind me, which is it, Paris fashion show was for?
Yeah. So there was a Paris Fashion Week video that I had original music on that was already produced, and then there was a Paris Fashion Week runway show that was, I mean, he couldn't show it in Paris because of COVID. So what happened was it was a 360-degree view of this runway that was this kind of warehouse looking thing with boxes. And you can check it out for yourself. It's on my website if you want to link it below or anything. But you can see it there. Life is just a state of mind. And if someone was viewing that video on YouTube or their phone through YouTube, they could turn the phone around or click and drag the camera around and view the show from different angles. And it was really cool too because at the grand finale, where like my music really picks up, the strobe lights started going along with it. So it's like I'm not even there, but I'm watching a show of my music. It was really weird, but it was super awesome just seeing my music being used. Yeah, it was like going to my own performance without playing, uh, and it was an awesome experience, and I couldn't be any more happier that it happened.
Yeah. So your creative output is quite high compared to most. What is your creative process? You did mention, it's a pretty pure form of self-expression for you. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and you did mention before to me briefly that when you start something, you'll finish it before you get off it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like my creative process, like you said, I'll try and finish it before I even sit up off my chair. Which I mean, now that I'm getting into more complex things, it's difficult to do that. And some projects now do take a week or two. It was much easier for me to sit down. Plus, I wasn't working a full time job either. And I had the time available in order to wake up at 10 a.m., hop behind here, sit here for 6 7 hours, and then have something that was ready to be mastered.
Yeah.
From start to finish. So a majority of my music that you heard at the beginning with my early releases in 2019, most of those tracks were made in a day, mixed, mastered, and put into my little desktop folder.
Yeah. I mean, the last time we spoke wasn't too long ago, but you were pretty, I guess, I don't know. You were very proud of just putting stuff out and letting the world take it as it is. But you're now, which is reasonable, like thinking about like, hey, how do I package something? How do I advertise it? How do I put myself out there?
Hmm.
Uh, what has changed? What has made you think differently?
Just because I'm kind of, I don't know. I think what's changed is, hmm.
Build an audience or
I mean, I guess to build an audience, I think that would be the only reason. But I've always said it. Well, I mentioned it on Instagram. I think it's still up. But it was just my explanation of saying like this is why I don't promote myself. I'd rather have listeners, be 100% engaged rather than just playing it for the sake of doing me a favor or something. I'd much rather the listeners be more genuine. In order to promote myself, or in order to get those listeners, I would have to promote myself. I mean, at the end of the day, it is to gain listeners. It's not about plays, but it's just about having people that I can share my music with at a broader scale. And if that requires having to promote myself more than I do already, which is not at all, then yeah, so be it. I mean, I know it's going to be hard work. People have actually, people have teams and labels and agents that do it for them, and I know a lot of people that promote themselves. Just guerrilla style, posters, things like that. But I've just never really been drawn to that approach. I've always just wanted my music to magically reach the ears of everybody. Luckily for streaming services too, especially Spotify and Apple Music, Spotify primarily, building playlists that are targeted towards, or not targeted, but the Spotify algorithm really helps artists that are small to grow. I've had one of my top played tracks is because it was added to a playlist, and that playlist had people that enjoy that specific kind of music. I don't know if you've ever uploaded anything to Spotify, but when you do and you have a single or an album, you choose one track of that album or EP, or if it's a single, you just show that one. You say what instruments were used, what religion it is, what mood it is, and a few other ones that I forget. But what they're doing is they're building the algorithm of what that particular track is going to be placed in. So let's say, for example, I listen to death metal with banjo music and it's chill. They will be able to recommend me, whether or not the person has, 1 million listeners or 2 million or even 100 listeners. They will recommend me that, and I just so happen to be that artist that doesn't have very many listeners, but Spotify allows me to put my music into a playlist that will generate plays and give me listeners that are special to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, let's go back to some of the your recent work. So, your album from 2020, "How to Hide Symptoms of Sickness," goes through stages of viral disease. Was
Mhm.
it? It was a coincidence, right? It was that you
Yeah.
right before COVID.
Yeah, so most of those tracks and the idea of the album was already done before COVID was even a thing. I was building that album in December of 2019, and it was already called "How to Hide Symptoms of Sickness." And then COVID happened, and yeah, I don't know if it was bad marketing or good marketing, because I mean I didn't really have plays to show whether or not it was a smart move. Um, yeah, if I think if I was a little bit bigger than I was now, people would take notice. Obviously, I mean I even released it very early in COVID, before quarantine was even really a thing, and there was a track on it called "Last Minutes in Quarantine." I think a little bit of me too. I mean, growing up listening to metal music, there was a band Oceano, and they had an album called I think it was I think it was called Quarantine. I might be wrong though, but all of the tracks were all viral infection themed, and I always thought that was kind of cool in some morbid way. an album basing, an album based off of, a pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just, I don't know if it was in bad taste to release it right after things got worse, but even then it was released in, I think, February. And like I said, COVID wasn't even on the radar.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed Crush and Drawn, your fourth song from your 2020 record, Dragged Uphill. It's
Yeah.
brooding, it's eerie, and I also enjoyed the storytelling of the album. What is the meaning behind Dragged Uphill?
Um, I didn't really go in with a meaning. It was more so wanting to have an album that was ambient but was able to tie in, black metal influences, and like sludgy influences, while still kind of keeping it this dark, eerie album. So there's a few ambient tracks with no drums, long intros, ambient endings, and it was just for the sake of shaping the album to have two genres that I wanted to have on an album, pretty much. Um, what came first? I don't know what came first. I don't know if I was producing the ambient first, because earlier, I don't know if I answered, but um, my work method and how I build an album, there really isn't the start of an album. I don't really plan for an album. It just so happens that I have tracks that kind of all fit the same you know sound, and I group them together and release it as an album or an EP, or just one or two tracks. So yeah, I had a few of the ambient tracks that were already produced, and then I produced I think the first track on the album was the first track that was had drums in it, and then Crushed and Drawn was just a fluke. I just found a really good guitar amplifier that I was able to just get this like really cool pitch on, and it really worked. And the drums, and it just all started coming together. And my friend Kyle, shout out Internet Vitamins, was standing over my shoulder while I was like playing the track from the beginning, and him just like you could see it in his face. It was just like you can see the energy in it, and he felt like it just felt like it just was, it was exactly how I wanted it to sound, and I was very very happy with it. And I wouldn't say I'm still trying to, I'm chasing the dragon, and trying to get that same result again, because I feel like music, a lot of it is chance or fluke. I really don't think people that would answer honestly, like I came in with one intention and left with the same intention. I guarantee 10 out of 10 times people go in to a first track with a totally different idea than what they come out with. And whether it's finding a particular sound in the process of production, or it's including an extra instrument and then relying on that instrument to push the song forward, it could be a whole mix of things. It could be even the slightest mixing difference. I've had tracks before where there was drums, bass, guitar, synthesizers, bass synthesizers, and I thought, what would it sound like with just no drums? Drums were what I started with. The drums were the beginning of my project, and then what I was left with was Scene Two on my last release. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Windshield Love Story. Scene Two was at the very beginning a like techno track that had multiple percussive instruments. It was a trumpet that a lot of people got right. They didn't know what it was. It did sound like a trumpet, but I washed it up so hard that I really wanted a city scene type of feel. Again, I didn't go into the project with that intention. I went in with the intention of making a techno song because that's what I was feeling. It would be very impressive to see an artist go in with the sole intention of creating something new and different, with no guidelines whatsoever, and coming out with the same intention that they came in with. I would be very impressed. I mean, when it comes to beat production, I mean, there is a end result. There needs to be a beat. Um, so if you go in starting with a synthesizer, or you go in starting with drums or a bass line, either way, you're most likely going to be using something along those lines by the end, whether it be like an 808 drum kit or a pad synthesizer. Um, but when it comes again to experimental music, the reason why it's called experimental music is because you're experimenting. I'm mixing a pot right now. And when I'm producing, it's taking influences, it's taking ingredients and mixing them together, removing some, adding some. That sounds good. That doesn't sound good. But how can I make the other thing sound good without removing said thing? Um, Trial and error. But again, still not being restricted to a specific sound. Um, so yeah, I mean, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, you're going really into detail about your craft and how you approach music, and I can relate to that. Whenever on GarageBand, I want to, okay, this is a melody I'm gonna go for, and then it comes out completely different usually. So I
Mhm.
completely understand that, and I mean your output is so active. I can't really keep up. So what are you working on now? You
What
you're
I'm
really
working.
excited to uh, work on something completely different.
I mean, right now I'm just messing around, and I actually have a folder on my laptop that's called "Messing Around." But I'm really thinking about putting them all into one track, and then just putting it on SoundCloud, and people can listen through. And it wouldn't just be one 20-minute long track. It would be a compilation of sounds that are, they could be finished, they might not be. I don't really plan on revisiting some, but they sound amazing. Like, I mean, as basic as violin melodies and vocal samples that I've just created. If you put them all together, it would build something that I think would be really interesting. It's very ethereal and nostalgic, and unfortunately, you have to go down the nostalgic route of promotion. One thing about Spotify's algorithm is that nostalgia really plays a role. If someone's listening to something, they want to hear something that sounds familiar. So there are some bands and some artists that try to beat the algorithm and get themselves injected into a bunch of playlists, and I guess that could be a sole intention as well, right? I mean, it doesn't have to sound the same as when you went in, but the meaning behind the track could be considered the same at the end result. And most of the time, it is. If you go in making something sad, it's most likely going to come out sounding sad. If you want to make something that's going to work with algorithms, you can work on something that would work with algorithms. Uh, there are a lot of you know um, roots in music of what you can take in your creative process. And I think it could be two artists that have been working since day one together, but I guarantee you the two of them have different production process and how they attack a idea or how they play an instrument. No two artists are the same, even down to how they use their workstation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about your Sleep Face Records, your music production business.
So, during the pandemic, I was just really looking for something to do, and I was, like, I mean, I built a portfolio and I just put a title on it, which is just Sleep Face Recordings. So if anyone were to, use my music for a production, like, if someone comes my way and says, "Hey, we're doing this movie, or we're doing this runway show, or we need music for this Instagram promo," I can just not have to put Body in the Water on it. I can just put Sleep Face Recordings. Because if I put Body on the Water on it, people click that and they find my metal music and they're like, "Yo, what the heck? Like, who is this guy?" Sleep Face Recordings just keeps everything that's sound designy and score esque together. and puts a title on it. That was kind of my intention going into it. Is just having a title on something that takes people away from my main project. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a side project that specializes in score.
Yeah. Yeah. And you, yeah, we can go like, you had different alter egos. I mean, a lot of people, I guess, update their names, but you do like constantly evolving. And you
Mm-hmm.
have told me briefly that you were thinking of going with a new moniker. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you
Yes,
remember
I still don't know what moniker I want to go off of. I'm still gonna keep Body in the Water. That is still gonna have all its projects under Body in the Water. I might even still release music under Body in the Water. But right now, the music that I'm making is much more complex, I would consider, than what I used to, and it's kind of like a oh shit, this is kind of serious. So I kind of want to, use a different platform that would, only have those songs. It wouldn't, because again, like you were saying, it's overwhelming when you visit my discography, right? It's like, I have a lot of albums, I have a lot of EPs, I have a lot of tracks on set albums. So, when someone visits, they might be very overwhelmed from what's displayed. And, my little discover or my little short playlist on top of Spotify, I wish I could just put what I wanted there. Like I want people to hear these songs specifically. I don't want them to hear this track that happened to play 3 times more than the other one. I want people to hear these ones. I mean, SoundCloud had it right when it came to promo spot up on top where you could link your music right on top. But yeah, SoundCloud doesn't pay their producers, so yeah, I'm not getting the premium. Yeah, going back to your question though about different monikers. Um, yeah, I used to go by Tokyo Airshow. I think I went by that for like 3 years, and I only released music on Bandcamp under Tokyo Airshow. The name came from the idea of a UFO invasion over Tokyo and just the idea of extraterrestrial neon. I thought that was like a really cool idea because that's kind of what my music sounded like, extraterrestrial neon. If you can put that into a sound, that's what I was aiming for. It had kind of an end goal, right? I mean, I went in producing the track as Tokyo Air Show. Like, how many, black metal performers would you think would go by Tokyo Air Show, right? It'd be kind of weird. With Body in the Water, I was just able to have more of a vague, or not vague, a more open, more options with my name. I feel like Body in the Water could be electronic, it could be metal, it could be doom, it could be ambient. It could have so many connotations behind it, but it still leaves the idea of darkness, right? Loneliness. The wishy-washy sounds that I'm always using in music. I always pay attention very closely to the white noise that I use and how it's works with my music. Um, Before Tokyo Air Show, I went by Miami, Miamee, and it was just very hard for people to say, and like for myself to say. Like I went by Miami, and then I went by Miami, and then I went by Miami, and people would still call me Miami, or they call me another derivative that came from that name, and then it wasn't until this like North American band like sent like a borderline cease and desist message on Facebook because they literally capitalized the second M in Miamee. It was spelt the exact same way. It was capitalized the same way, and it was right after I made a Facebook page for my music, which is what you do naturally when you start making beats, right? You make a Facebook page. So it was like shortly after that, I got that little message on Facebook like, "Hey, where me and me? We would like to ask you to like change your name. We've been around since like 2010, and mind you, like this was like 2013, 2014. So like they obviously had the name before me, and I couldn't argue it. And by then, I was already thinking of changing it anyways. But you can still find my like music I made when I was like 15, or no, I would have been 16 or 17. Yeah, I want to say 17. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 17, because it was right after I got my MIDI controller, and yeah, I can send it to you. And it's under Me and Me. I was released on some collective. There was another collective, emoji cult, that I was a part of. You can still find that on Facebook. It was a friend of mine from LA, myself, 16-year-old who now goes. He used to go by Jerry or Gerald, and it was spaces in between his name, so it was Jerald or something.
Mhm.
But he's on a mixtape with me, and that's when he used to rap, and it was like lo-fi rap. Me and him used to talk all the time, so he was part of the group. Levitating Man, who's produced for like Black Cray, um, Chainsaw, who's from Etobicoke. Uh, Swimful Butterfly was on it, who goes by Swimful now. Um, he was on it, and we released two mixtapes, and I think I had two tracks on it, and I mean we just put them on Bandcamp. But if you search Emoji Cult on Bandcamp, if you look at Me and Me, that's me at the age of 16 producing. And you listen to Gerald, that 16-year-old rapping. Um, I got played on an Austrian radio station when I went under Tokyo Airshow. I remember I worked at Target at the time, and I got an email from this Austrian XM radio station that was just like, "Hey, we played this song on our radio station. Keep it up, from Austria." And I was like, "What? Like that's insane." I mean, with Tokyo Air Show, I want to say I was sort of semi-successful. I was mentioned in a article by FutureBeats.org. I had an honorable mention for best future beat albums of 2014. That was really cool because I was like in the same category as like Macintosh Plus and another producer that I really looked up to, and just like having my name like Tokyo Air Show. I think the album was it's still up there too. Ghost Boy was on it. I can't even remember the names of my own albums. There's so many, but that one was semi-successful, and also too with SoundCloud I used a lot of hashtags that just got me plays. I also DM'd a lot of artists a lot, and they would share my music. um, but under Body in the Water, I guess I just felt like it was a very niche audience that would be acceptful of this music. When I went by Tokyo Air Show, my music was kind of semi-mainstream. Yeah, I mean it was vaporwave-esque, and it was just good place, good time. It's kind of like if you're a trap producer, like Stadium Trap, and you're producing music, and right when Stadium Trap comes out, you start making that, and you can have one basic song that you learned in a day, and that song gives you 30 million plays just because you caught the wave, right? So when I went by Tokyo Air Show, I felt like I caught the wave a couple times, especially with SoundCloud too. At the time, SoundCloud was popping. I had a premium account. I followed the right people. Those people shared my music, and it was awesome. My music's still up, as I said too, under both monikers, Miami and Tokyo Air Show. Um, but that's the past, and then present right now being Body in the Water, and future. I don't know what name I want to go under. I know I want to stick to one specific genre, and that's the genre that I'm doing right now. And I'm putting a lot of time and effort into the tracks that I'm producing. So I want it to be a name that really catches people's attention. Obviously, like I mean, no one really. I mean, besides Limp Bizkit, Fred Durst named Limp Bizkit to draw just people away from looking at the title. That's why he had Chocolate Starfish, Hot Dog Chocolate Starfish, I think it's called, like their first album, because it just turned people away from wanting to listen to it, and the true fans would buy it and have this ugly album art and this ugly song title name, in their Walkmans. Um, but that's just kind of like one you know thing to describe people going against the grain of monikers. If you ask anyone like why they went under a specific title, it was to draw attention and to explain. It's a book title pretty much, right? When you open it up, you see the title, and it's it can either be a mystery, it could be a thriller. It can all have different kinds of connotations. Like an example of that going the wrong way would be the movie We Need to Talk About Kevin. Super dark film, right? If anyone's seen it, they know it's a dark film. But people went into the theaters expecting to see a romantic comedy, because if you looked at the poster, it looked like a romantic comedy. And especially the name, We Need to Talk About Kevin, to accompany said poster, people honestly thought that they were going to be walking into a rom com. And they ended up seeing, you know, We Need to Talk About Kevin. So I really want to be to the point when it comes to what I'm producing, and what people are in for. And I feel like that would draw in a lot of people as well. I feel like if someone saw a cool song title that was kind of up their alley, it would draw people in. So I feel like, I don't feel like I have a lot of pressure, but I really want it to. I'm really thinking it through, as well as the music that I'm doing. There's a lot of thought that's going into the entire project that's happening in the future. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just a longer way of saying, like, big things are coming.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
what are you having the most fun right now? Because it sounds like Tokyo Airshow was like a very formative, like you were kind of growing and you
Hmm.
were experiencing some fame. So it was like a lot of firsts. But now it sounds like you're just you want to explore your art and want to see, where it could lead you. Are
Hmm.
you having the most fun you're having right now, or what do you
Uh,
find different?
I've had fun since the beginning. Making music is fun, right? I'm always having fun when I'm behind a keyboard, unless it's something that is against my will. Like I'm you know being asked to perform something, or play something that isn't typically my style. It's only happened like once, but that's the only time I can consider myself being upset behind a keyboard. Um, but yeah, I think it's all relative. I was young, 17, getting exposure. I was actually playing shows as well under Tokyo Airshow. When I was living in Guelph, I played at a couple of venues under that moniker. Again, just exposure. But like I said too, I caught a wave. I was able to get in there when uh, the genre that I was doing, I would guess I would consider it to still be experimental, was becoming sort of a big deal. There was some artists that were making music that would be deemed experimental. You have musicians like Tame Impala and Bjork and um, Sigur Rós becoming like popular in today's generation. And I feel like my music was sort of in that realm. Chill pop was also a big genre then too. So like you had artists like XXYYXX with that song About You. Every stoner when they were 16 listened to that song and watched the music video with their friends. And some people just stuck to listening to that track or that album. And that's and then they would listen to the other things they listened to prior. But there were other artists, or there are other listeners that said, "This is really cool," but like I wonder what else is out there, and they had that drive in order to seek. And I was only a stepping stone away, really. I do names. I associated myself with artists. I was in a tiny chat once with Spooky Black when he went by Spooky Black, Corbin, I should say. But yeah, it was just like me, him, and a producer, Logan. Haven't talked to him in a while, but he was from Florida, where XX or oh no, Minnesota. Sorry, I was still on my mind about XXYYXX. He was from where Spooky Black was from, and we had this tiny chat, and nothing really came from it. Obviously, he wasn't really even interested in music at that time as well. He was a great singer, um, but yeah, there was a lot of exposure that I had, and I was just very into the internet then too. I wasn't just being on Reddit all day. Like I was actually looking things up. I was submitting my music to Earmilk. I was posting hashtags on SoundCloud to go along with my music. Um, so, I was putting in the work, and I guarantee if I put in the same work that I did when I was younger with what I'm doing now, um, I would have the same sort of results. I feel. I mean, the only kind of promotion that I really do is just like I said, Instagram story, and I'll submit a single to a Spotify page. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It sounds like what you're making is very good, and the promotion, that's yeah, once you have that, once you work on that, I don't think you would have problem finding and building an audience. I think what you're making,
mhm.
because I listen to a bunch of your stuff, it's maybe it's because I just happen to
Enjoy
actually
it.
well, but still, I think yeah, you're the I mean, you know yourself, like the
Mhm.
craft is there, the music is there. It's just finding or have put it somewhere where people can find it.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, I've even thought as to go as far as pressing like 100 vinyl and then just like giving it to record shops, and then like not even know if someone even bought it or not, and just like having that mystery and come back and like, oh yeah, we sold it, and just know someone out there is like listening to it. I think that would be really cool, and it would also maybe they would even visit my Spotify. Uh, Record shops are, I mean, the whole sole purpose of a record shop at the beginning was to promote artists, right? You know, you have easy fitting things that could all be lined up, and all people saw was the album and the title and the artist on the front usually, and on the back there was a description of what the artist was trying to convey with that album. Like I have a few albums from way back that they go into deep detail about the music because they really want to sell that album, and there was no other way of listening to that album, right? It's not like they heard it previous. It's their first time listening to that album as soon as they put the needle down. And in order to make that purchase, they needed a lot of reassurance that this money that they're going to spend is going to be worthwhile. So I mean, I feel again, the algorithm is great. It's benefited me, um, but people have less options with discovering music. I guess that's where searching a playlist of a specific genre, but no one's really picking something up without even knowing what's behind it. It could be a punk album, it could be a techno album, it could be an industrial album, it could be a pop album. All they know is the title, the name, and the description on the back. And I like that. Just yeah,
I think you should do it. I think you should print those LPs. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, something
I
like
mean, it
that.
just costs a lot though. It's like $1,800,
Yeah, I
and you got to
remember.
make sure that they sell.
Yeah. And I don't know, like you did mention like how Limp Bizkit, or we need to talk about Kevin uses misdirection. So these are all pretty good ideas to like, play with. So, I think you're made up your mind. I think you'll figure it out. You'll build your audience. I don't think you'll have a problem
Yeah,
with that.
and
Yeah.
like I'm not really. Um, it's not really my goal either. Like it's not my goal to really build an audience. What my goal is just to produce something that I know that I put a lot of work in. I mean, not to say that I haven't put in work in my other albums, but for everything from the title to the description to the album art is going to be thought out, well measured. And I'm even doing the Instagram page. I even might even get a Twitter. I might even get a Twitter, and then just I don't know, maybe put a track on TikTok or something,
Yeah.
and you know
Yeah.
promote it that way. I mean, there's so many different routes that you can go towards promoting, and I just haven't used any of them in the last like 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you'll figure it out, and I can't wait to see. We'll check in hopefully in some months and see like how you're doing, and hear about all the good things that happened.
then like yeah, but just I don't know how much you could have heard of that too, because I'm trying to play it through my audio interface, and it's a garbage one. It's one of the I don't. What kind of audio interface do you have?
I don't. Oh,
Oh,
I didn't even have it. Like I have like a USB to uh what's it called, XLR. Like I barely
mm,
have an interface at all. Yeah. I mean that little snippet, I don't know, that sounded really good. Like it sounded like very runway showy. Like
yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. I found this synthesizer,
yeah,
and it's you can like really fine tune violins, and it sounds really pretty. So
yeah,
I'm just trying to incorporate that.
yeah.
Anyways, I gotta get going.
Yeah. Can't wait to hear more of your music. And yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for following up. Thanks for this.
sweet. Take care.
Yeah, bye.